Hello, I'm Margaret, and I'm going to help you today to learn how to make bread. Now, if that sounds daunting, I promise you it isn't. I've got a secret weapon. I've got a bread machine. So this is for all you ladies out there who may have a bread machine gathering dust on a shelf, stuck in a cupboard. Get it out, ladies. I got my bread machine about 5 years ago, read the instructions, and thought, I'll never do it. It looked to me like a science manual. I promise you it isn't. Once you get the hang of it and you read your bread machine instructions, you will turn out wonderful bread. My machine is a Panasonic SD250/SD. That doesn't really matter. You probably have a different bread machine. So to get started, you need to dig your machine out, find your instructions and start at the beginning, giving it a good read. I did, and thought, oh gosh, what does this mean? What does that mean? By the time I'd read it 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, I understood. So read your instructions on your bread machine. The bread machine will have a pan for putting your flour and ingredients in. This is mine. Yours may be slightly different. It doesn't matter. The ingredients may be different. It doesn't matter. Now that we've all got time on our hands, we really can have a go at this. What I want to start with is a very simple recipe for white bread. You may say, oh, but we like brown bread. We'll come to that later. Let's make it simple and easy to begin with. So we turn to our bread recipes. Mine says, do excuse the dog, she's very excitable. Bread recipes. Okay? Now there are lots of bread recipes in here, but we are starting with the easiest. You can progress to different recipes as you become more comfortable and more proficient using your own machine. Oh, what does mine say? It says, that one says rapid wholemeal. We're not doing that one. We are doing a white loaf of bread. Now, where's it gone? It was here a minute ago. Oh, found it. It's come to hand again. Make sure you've got your bread recipe at the right page so that you're not doing what I'm doing now, searching around for it. White loaf. Now, here is the bread pan. I do have a helper. And what this says is you put your ingredients in a certain order. You do put them in a certain order. Don't ask questions about why. At the moment, we are doing what the book says. Remember, it does what it says on the tin. Well, this will do what it says in the book. So first of all, very important, we have our yeast, dried yeast. Now, ladies, you do not want yeast for hand baking. You need yeast for bread machines. Allinson is a very good make. You can also get it, well, you may be able to get it at the moment, at Lidl's, the Co-op. Where you can get it, get it. Now, it says specific measurements. So we have our pan here. This is our measure, teaspoon, tablespoon. But with yeast, this is a precise measurement. So it says we're going to make an extra large loaf. My machine gives you 3 sizes, so you choose which size you want to make, and it says 1¼ teaspoons of yeast. Just drop it in there, 1/4 teaspoon, drop it in there, so you've got your yeast in. Next thing we put in is our flour, pre-measured flour, and I want to show you something about the flour. Ladies, I'm not using very expensive flour. This flour, Lidl, you can even get it at Aldi. It's a good price, it's extra strong, and it does work. Don't use just plain flour. That will not make good bread. You need extra strong or just plain strong white bread flour. As long as it says bread flour, you are okay. Right, so we put this into our bread pan, like that. There we go. Now what do? Well, we look at our recipe again. So we've got the flour in, we've got the yeast in, sugar. We need 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now I'm using caster sugar, but it doesn't matter. Granulated would be fine. White sugar, not brown. And how much does it say in my recipe? It says 2 teaspoons of sugar. Okay. Level, just drop it in. See, there's nothing difficult about this, is there? You can do it. 2 of those. And the next thing that we need, I wonder if my helper would get me some salt. Thank you, Jill, that's very kind. So we have put our sugar in. We are putting next into the pan 1 ounce of butter. This gives your bread a subtle, delicious flavour. Ladies, don't use margarine if you can possibly help it. Butter is so flavourful and delicious. 1 ounce, my machine says. Is this difficult? I don't think so. So we've got 1 ounce of butter. Thank you, Jill. Now we are going to put the salt in. Let me see. I do recommend that, having not done this before, that you carefully measure out your ingredients into little pots to start with, so that when you begin to add them to your bread pan, you are not looking around and trying to find wherever what is. Have it ready to put in. Now you want, see how that's a teaspoon, girls? Put it in. Now, does it say a teaspoon? No, it doesn't. It says 1½ teaspoons of salt. There you go. 1½ teaspoons of salt. So what have I got in my bread pan? I've got flour, yeast, butter, sugar and salt. Now where do I go? We put the water in next, ladies, and my machine says 400 mils of water. Now don't worry that you need hot, tepid, a certain temperature of water. No, cold water is fine, which is really good. There you go. Nothing technical about that. We put that in. We are now ready to put this in our bread maker. No waiting for it to rise, pulling it out, kneading it, putting it back in. No switching on your oven. The bread maker does everything. It's a magic machine. Okay, girls? So we take our bread over to our bread machine. This is the bread machine that I spoke about, the Panasonic. We drop it in. There's a connector at the bottom, and mine says twist it to the right and it will slot in and it won't pull out that way. Handle down, lid down. Now this is the part where you really must pay attention to what you are doing. My machine says I am making an extra large loaf, so it needs to be on menu number 1. Right, this is the button for menu. Yours will be similar. So we press menu and we find number 1. Okay, so we keep pressing. Mine has a lot of programs here, can do amazing things. Gosh. Number 1. There's a button that says size. Mine is, it's already come up on number 1. Yours may or may not. So you press this till it says XL. That's good. Right, on this side it says crust. That simply means some people like a light coloured bread, some like it sort of medium, others, like in this house, like it dark and crusty. So we press crust until it says dark. There you go. I'm on number 1. I have pressed the crust and I've got the size set. What complicated process comes next? It says start. That's it, ladies. Now we'll come back later and see what magic comes out of it.